Namaskar, good evening and adab to everybody. A very, very warm welcome to ECPT Career Hour. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is ECPT Career Hour. Welcome back to ECPT Career Hour. Today is Saturday and we are running with the Saturday Night Fever. This evening, we have got some fantastic career option for you. But before we head into that, let me just give you a brief description of what is this ECPT. EduGuy Career Predictive Test is a state-of-the-art career counseling service powered by artificial intelligence and deep learning. This is a new tool. It is unique software product that has been produced. It's actually one of the best in career counseling services, which is provided by EduGuy and IBM jointly. ECPT is a 120-minute AI-powered career test that has 3 segments, or basically 3 different ideas of questions or 3 different ideas of identifying the benefits or the strengths of a particular person. This is based upon the 3A career recommendation framework, which is developed by IBM. And the foundation of this 3A framework are, as I said, 3 A's. A for attitude, A for aptitude, and A for aspiration. ECPT provides a very comprehensive report at the end of the test, which gives the best 3 fit career options that are available to that particular student, that particular person, based upon his 3A framework. Isn't it phenomenal? This initiative is by IndySmart Group, EduGuy, and the IBM. So the students of this country are given the right tools at the right time. They're provided with the right attitude-based skills, the right aptitude, and the skills that they are successful in their life, thereby reducing the so-called depression quotient that is currently so rampant in our country. I mean, look at it this way. Careers today are one of the biggest questions, and it's not just for the young minds, it's also for the old minds, because they are thinking about the others. I mean, some of the students, the current students, you may want to become the next Virat Kohli. You may want to become the next Cristiano Ronaldo. How about the next Steven Spielberg? A.R. Rahman? How about making a career in body art or automobile designing, not engineering, designing, culinary arts? Maybe some of you want to become veterinarians. Or do you think you can rock the world being a voice artist? You know, in India, the education system provides options for all students. However, there are so many careers that never come to sight of all the young minds of this country. This is where ECPT comes into picture. Thousands of career options to choose from. ECPT brings all this career platter right up to your doorstep. All you need to do is actually give this test. The fun is, it is not just about your choice, because fortunately or unfortunately, our choices are sometimes colored by the people around us. So to ensure that peer pressure does not work, ECPT is purely a computerized program. It checks your potential, matches your aspiration, and then gives you the 3 best choices of career for you. So let me take you through the unique selling, the USPs of ECPT. 1, it is an aid to a career decision. And it is a scientific aid to your career decision. It does not necessarily or just take into account what people around you have told you're good at. There are no hunches involved. It is a very definite procedure based upon very definite, very specific set of questions. And based upon that, an artificial learning program decides or actually gives you the 3 best career options that you would be good for. And mind you, boys and girls, this may change. This definitely may change, because this is machine learning. Maybe today you're good for something. Tomorrow, your attributes have changed. you become maybe more patient. And if you're more patient, you're ready for some different line of work. And all of this is incorporated by ECPT. There is no human bias in this. It is all artificial learning, right? It derives your strengths. There are a lot of times when we ourselves are not aware of what our strengths are. We may think we are good at something. We may think we are good at something else. And maybe that's true. Why maybe? Of course, we know that what we're good at. But what are we best at? Now, that's a question that usually leaves a big question mark in our head. You can get an answer to that through ECPT. It's 120 minutes, just 120 minutes to help you identify what is it, what path can you choose that would be the best for you. And best based upon your capabilities, based upon your personality, based upon how you actually persevere. So these is why you should actually choose ECPT. But who can give this examination? Most importantly, this examination or this test should be taken by students who are about to enter the world of professional studies. They should be the first people to identify what career choices they need to make. You want to decide upon a career? Let us give you a hand. Students who have already decided, ECPT can actually determine whether it is the right choice for you. Think about it. I mean, why let that 10% doubt remain in your mind whether you have chosen the right thing for you or not? Because whatever career you choose, you're going to live with it. And if you have to live with it, might as well live with something that makes you happy, that makes you satisfied, and that makes you successful and complete. That said, it's not that working professionals cannot take this test. Professionals too can take this test, because at this time, particularly right now with the pandemic situation going on, if you want to make a career change, if you want to make a career move, this is the right time to take ECPT. Because again, you might have certain attributes that were not fixed or that were not in tandem with your last career choice. Maybe you want to go ahead and try something different, and that something different could be anything in this world, and it should suit your personality as well. Therefore, go ahead, take ECPT, think about how or when can you make a career decision. How do you decide to choose a career beyond that? Now, the more you look at it, the more positive data you will be able to uncover about ECPT. You can definitely look at ECPT at ecptonline.com. We will be sharing all the details with you shortly. But let me come back about data. Let me tease you a bit about the topic today. With the quick advent of e-commerce like Amazon, Flipkart, and the exorbitant salaries that these companies today are throwing at people, one career has truly distinguished itself despite all the pandemic going around. And that, my dear friends, is the field of data sciences. Today, a lot of new designations have come into play suddenly. There's something called a data scientist. There's something called a machine learning engineer. There's something called a machine learning scientist, which is different from the engineer. There is an application architect. There is an enterprise architect. There is somebody called a data architect, which is again very different, or an infrastructure architect. And all of these designations have stemmed out from a very different field of study. This field of study, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is called as data science. Data science, by definition, is an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insight from many, many structural and unstructured data. Now, what is data? Data is every bit of information that is available to you today. It can be about you. It can be about somebody else. It could be the least bit of things that you may not even pay a lot of attention to, but that is data. And boys and girls, it is very important to study data. Today, data science covers a lot of other fields such as data mining. such as machine learning, and very important and one of the most commercially viable things that is called as big data. I mean, think about it. Have you ever realized that if you log on to Amazon.com or Mintra.com and you search for any one particular good, like I keep searching for cell phones. Now, when I search for cell phones, I close my browser, I come out of it, and then I am going through some other web pages. Most of the ads that come on these web pages are related to the item that I had searched for. How do you think that is possible? Somebody is studying all the data that is available on this internet. Therefore, boys and girls, this field of data science today holds far more value than what it would have done just about 2 or 3 years ago. When I tell you it's an interdisciplinary field, what does it mean? Interdisciplinary field means it incorporates knowledges of multiple fields into one. The basics for data science are statistics, computer science, and mathematics. Boys and girls, today we have a very fantastic speaker. Our guest today has more renown under his shadow in the field of data sciences than most have in their entire career. This gentleman is the co-founder of Ideal Analytics. Mr. Chatterjee is the director of board and the chief technology officer of this country. His steadfast rise from an engineer to an entrepreneur has been very well documented, and he is known to help out a lot of startups under him. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please welcome Mr. Sanjoy Chatterjee. Mr. Chatterjee, it's a pleasure having you here. Such a fantastic opportunity for us to actually talk to you about data sciences, which is right up to your alley, and we would love to hear about it from you, sir.
Thank you, Samir, for the nice introduction. In fact, I was listening the last 10 minutes, very interesting. And before I really go into data science and the opportunities for the students for taking data science as a career and what are the options and all, I couldn't stop myself, telling my experience while selecting the career, and which is very much in line with what you guys said, the EduGuy platform. Very interestingly, when I was a kid, my dream job was to become an interstate truck driver, frankly speaking. So the truck drivers, they drive overnight, come from one state to another. So that was my childhood dream. And the next, it got a bit polished. And then my next dream was maybe when I was in school, to become like a Gary Schumacher kind of a thing. So like Formula One car racer. And then suddenly, by whatever, I landed up being an engineer. And even that didn't stay much. And finally an entrepreneur for the last 14 years. So interestingly, I probably initially, though it was driven by my passion, and somehow I didn't know I could ever be an entrepreneur. That came up, I discovered myself. So this is very interesting. And this sort of tool, what not only that it helps you to guide, but from your self-evaluation also becomes much data driven, right? So some of the properties within yourself can be discovered through this kind of AI/ML based tools. So coming back to data science, as the term says, data science. So the two words. So very interestingly, I've asked, if you ask somebody what is the definition of data science, scientist rather, who are the people whom we call a data scientist? Of course, it's being cross-disciplinary, it becomes very interesting. In the whole world, more than 70% of the, so-called renowned data scientists are from physics background. Very interesting. They're not from mathematics background, interestingly, but they're from physics background. Again, the fact, the data-driven fact is a bit different than our perception. We always think either the person has to be coming from statistics, this thing and all. So it's neither of them are actually true. So to me, based on my experience, an ideal definition of a data scientist would be, data scientist is a better statistician than a programmer and a better programmer than a statistician. So that's the way, if we look into it, ideally it has three components. The one component is knowing the statistics part of it, knowing the programming part of it. And third is most important. Even these two are not sufficient, because we have seen a lot of cases where the companies, they are very good data scientists, they are excellent statisticians, best programmers on earth, but end of the day, the output was not well interpreted so that it can be applied in business or solving practical problems. So that interpretation is kind of is a mix of what we can say a business, whatever way you call it, but that's something where the management thing comes, business comes. So it's a three kind of a tripod kind of a thing where you have statistics, you have got programming, and also you've got business. So connecting these three dots, I would say a proper data scientist or data science can be, judged. Now let us see what are the career options for the students probably who are listening here from this social media live. So let us start from the beginning, right? So it starts with the data. And before even what kind of data and how we do that, the next steps, the first thing that comes, where to store this data, right? And where from this has to be fetched. This itself is a career. What we call infrastructure, data warehouse. You will see a lot of terms, storage management. There are cloud architecture, infrastructure architecture, data warehouse architect. There are lots of roles are there. How you handle billions of records generated per day from any industry, like an Amazon example that you gave, that generates a huge number of data. Even before we really know what to do with the data, the first thing is that the data in its raw form has to be stored somewhere. And this area is not easy, the scale up thing. I give you one simple example. You might have heard, recently, one of the project that we did for Calcutta Metro to be made operational, introducing e-pass system. The day it was launched, I still remember first 15 minutes, it was a mess. Our anticipation based on the data was there will be 200 requests per second. The server, everything was accordingly, but we had a backup plan. And suddenly we saw in 10 minutes, it become 1,000 requests per second. Immediately, the additional nodes and these infrastructure guys, our guys, they were almost, firefighted, and immediately within 2 minutes, everything gone settled. So, but initial 15 minutes required, so this is something a career wise, if you see, that's like a very, very big area. And now when we are now trying to do it for the Mumbai Railways, the volume is there 10,000 per second. 10,000 requests per second, probably one of the largest in India. So having an infrastructure like that, and if you see the infrastructure that's being planned to take care of this kind of data with Amazon that we are doing, it's enormous. And also there also is a bit learning. Even the infrastructure has an AI/ML component. Earlier days, we used to choose we've got 5 servers to take care of this kind of load. But no, they have made it such a flexible, they call it elastic. So based on the load and everything, the server also makes its clone and, gets increased. The scalability goes both horizontally and vertically. Now, this is the area very, very predominant. And with the growing demand, I'm sure this job has a lot of challenges, a lot of interesting areas to work in. So this is what I consider the lowest part of the pyramid, the data warehouse or infrastructure. The next comes the data handling side. Now there are a lot of layers in that. But the first layer after this, the data infrastructure warehouse, what comes is the role of what we call them, sometimes we call them data architect or data engineers. So what they do, the data that being captured, from there they try to fetch information. When the data called 22 is stored in the database, we know it might be what? That doesn't make any sense. Now for analysis, 22 might be age, 22 might be length, whatever it is. So now the data engineer's job is to make that structured and unstructured in social media or in Amazon. There are a lot of unstructured data. Somebody is writing a comment. So now data is coming. Now this is the role of data architect and data engineer, is primarily to fetch from those structured and unstructured data and making it available structured so that this can be used for analysis. So the raw data or whatever the data is being stored in the warehouse is not less is capable, right? So this is a big role, and the data engineers demand probably is one of the leading demand within the whole data analytics spectrum after, and the very most important part to know is the data engineering and data architect, if you say like in a total job requirement, it is 100 scale, so the data engineer's requirement will be at least 50. Because that's the major chunk. 80% of any data science project requires data storage and data engineering, which altogether is more than 80% in terms of the complexity, in terms of everything. The next layer after the backend, and then a layer of data engineers. Now, so your data is now more or less readable. They're much better structured. They are tagged, everything. The next job is what we call two aspects of this, one from a functional aspect, another from a technical aspect. The functional aspect, there are people who will make, who we call like, business analyst or the data analyst. So what this guy, basically this role is, based on this data engineer's output, they create dashboards, KPIs, analytics, what we call a business intelligence. So the business intelligence developers, the way they're known for, there are lots of tools in the market. There are tools from like, Tableau, ClickView, from Oracle, they have tool OBIE. There are lots of products are there. From SAP, there are SAP BOE, lots of. So they use these kind of tools so that this output of their BI or business intelligence is being used by the decision maker so that they can monitor, measure, or take actionable insights from there. And what the data analytics does, so they do a bit morely technical part of it. So what they do with just not a monitoring, but from there they do a lot of small forecasting, some predictions, and some statistical analysis on that. Parallel to this role, there is another role which is more of a functional. So what we call them business analyst. So the role of business analyst is from this dashboard, or to identify what kind of dashboards or what kind of KPIs will be required so that the management will be able to grasp that from the report being generated from the data analysts. So it's basically they make a bridge between the business decision makers or the CXO guys with the technical guys. The role of data business analysts are increasing, but there the experience level, I would say 60% functional and 40%, or maybe 70-30, 70% functional, 30% technical. So this role is very attractive for the people who doesn't come from a statistics background or this kind of mathematics or this kind of very high technology background, but have a solid business acumen with a lot of functional expertise in some domains, and they understand technology. So they will be the ideal person who can read those, who can derive the actionable insights from those and pass it back to the management like that. The next layer, which is the last layer, I would say, in this pyramid, which is what we call the data scientists. Sometimes they're called machine learning ML engineers. Sometimes they are called machine learning scientists, or to be AI expert. So their job, they are probably the smallest part of the whole pyramid of the whole data science spectrum, but they find they find clean and organized data for companies. So their job is to identify the hidden treasures from the data. So that is very, very important. Though their job is small in terms of the volume and the comparison to the other part of the three layers, but that is very, very important. So they should be able to analyze the large amount of complex, raw, and processed information which are being given by the data engineers, and they find patterns so that basically end of the day benefits an organization to drive strategic business decisions. So this is more of a strategy compared to the data analysts. The data scientists are much more technical. So they need to know not only statistics, but very complex modeling techniques, artificial intelligence and neural networks, those techniques. And then they should have also a connect to the business, because they solve the problem of business or social or environmental, maybe domain specific, but their applications, the model that they will choose has to have a lot of domain expertise as well. I give you an example. In a transport vertical, for example, let me give an example. We all know Uber, right? So what you use as an Uber user, you see what vehicles are coming near to you or whatever. You you give an origin and destination, you get a vehicle. Yeah, the vehicle is assigned to you, you pay, and the vehicle comes. You can see the location of the vehicle and go. Now, what is the data science in it? Nothing, zero. But what you see in the app of Uber is just the tip of the iceberg. Maybe 0.1% of the whole complexity, if I call it. The rest is underlined. The first thing that the Uber or kind of these hyper logistics or hyper local transportation companies does, what we call in technology terms or business terms, like demand and supply management. And that's the whole pillar is based on data science and a hardcore modeling. What it does, it gives you or it generates the demand and the supply. It tries to match the supply. Why? To avoid the surge pricing. Imagine in Calcutta, you have 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer square, virtual, right? Like a Google map, you imagine like those tiles, right? And by this analysis, they predict for every 15 minutes, 20 minutes per minute prediction. So in Salt Lake area, in sector 5, in next hour, there will be 500 requirements, 500 demands. So they channelize those cars, which is coming from their adjacent squares, and they channelize them to the sector 5 to cater this additional demand so that you get the vehicle faster, and also they don't have to pay additional charge. You don't have to pay additional charge. And this kind of analysis, the volume of the data, it's abnormal. I mean, when you really think, you are predicting literally per minute. We did it for Indonesia, which is a Uber rival, in Gojek, in the whole Jakarta city. They had 200,000 vehicles and a combination of bikes, taxis, and also they used to provide foods like your Swiggy, like that. So both hyper logistics and hyper transportation, passenger. So there, these 200,000 vehicles are giving you data, real-time data every time, the whole Jakarta, and this kind of calculation per minute. So you lose 15 minutes means you lose business. If you lose a day means you are out of business. So this is the scenario it has now come. So now this is just an example. So now the last layer is very, very complex when it comes to, I would say, people, it's like a perception. It's not complex when you think from a business or the solution perspective. Like even, the small thing, like we have used Uber, there is a small component called ETA, expected time of arrival, when or expected time to reach to your destination, right? More or less, have you seen, like, it's very, very accurate. How do they do it? They have the real-time traffic data and they are predicting it even in a city like Calcutta, where you never know what's happening in the road. It's so difficult. Nothing, it's not only in Calcutta, rather any metro, even in Paris, everywhere. Now, even given those sort of uncertainty, now imagine a data scientist has to solve this problem and predict an ETA, which should be more than 4-5 seconds accuracy. Now, what this guy has to think? He just cannot think only on the transport side. He has to think about the road network. He has to think about what are the complexities in each of the junction they have, how much the traffic light is controlled and how it is controlled. He has to take care of the weather. It has to take care of the diurnal variation, seasonal variation. Hell of a thing. And festival seasons and all. So imagine the complexity. So just have a 4-second accuracy, what you are capturing the data, which is primarily, normally people might say, why do I need to capture the weather data for, yes, it is possible, it is required. So what I will do, next, I will just take some of the cases better, because I'm not going to this technology detail. There are lots of tools and people can just Google and see, like, in this area, there are lots of technologies and tools are available. But before I go to some of the use cases which might be of interest of the young guys, I'll just touch upon only one thing. So far as these 4 layers that I had talked about, recently the big companies, what generally we call them the platforms, they have already come up with a lot of platforms to make this developers' life much easier. So these platforms are part of DevOps, we call development and DevOps platforms. So in data science area also, this is now a growing significance of DevOps for data science. So DevOps are nothing but a set of methods that combine software development and IT operations that aims to shorten the development life cycle, and it provides you the uninterrupted delivery with high software quality. So it basically shortens your development and time. So in this kind of DevOps platforms are available in the data science area. So it helps you, and it has a lot of things already there. So these libraries the developers can use, and so that they can learn while using, and that makes their life very easy. I still remember the day when I write my first AI program in one of the project for Tata Steel. It was a problem of predicting the output of a blast furnace. Blast furnace has a 5,000 had 5,000 parameters, 5,000 parameters, and the most influencing parameters were around 50, and the output were I think 4 5, which is basically the output of the steel, the component of different chemical compositions, the carbon and all. So there you have say maybe 5 6 parameters in the output, and you've got 5,000 parameters, and in between there's a black box, and you never know a blast furnace. If you are anybody is kind of, just to give an analogy, a blast furnace is kind of something like it's very complex process, and it cannot be stopped. Maybe once in 2 years it's being stopped for maybe a day or something for maintenance and all. So it's a very complex thing. So there you are predicting based on, and the quality of the steel depends on how you are putting the coal in which angle also. So like that, there are 5,000 parameters which controls the output. So I still remember the program is to take almost 10 days to run for us. Say artificial neural network we used, and it took 10 days. Now the same thing can be run in probably 10 hours or maybe much lesser period. Now these tools have already there in the market. Those days are gone where you had to write all those algorithms physically, but that's not required. There are a lot of libraries and a lot of tools are there, and don't hesitate to use those tools, because those are nothing but instead of doing the calculation in the hand, you are using a calculator. Just take it like that way. But the reason for using the right tool and the right models, that's basically the knowledge, and that should be concentrated. The students should concentrate more on those to identify the right solution for the right problem. Now, some of the very quick use cases just to touch upon. Let me start with retail, as you started with Amazon example. So retail, the example that you gave was basically what we call a basket analysis. In technology terms, it's called a market basket analysis. But even there are complex areas for omni-channel retail. The people are analyzing for a coupon, 10% discount that you get, right, for some products. Now for an omni-channel, this discount, sometimes the company whose product is this, what we call vendor funded coupon, or the platform funded coupon. Sometimes Amazon gives the discount, and sometimes the product company gives the discount, which is being available in the Amazon, right? For you as a user, you are looking into a same thing. Hundreds of data scientists are just developing algorithms just to optimize this, giving or changing this discount maybe 0.5% or 1%. What will be the effect in the sale? Or what will be, so this is like they're simulating this day in and day out, just for maybe 2%, because this 2%, when it comes to a volume, it's like multi-million dollar difference. So now this has gone to that level. You take any company, e-commerce or omni-channels are is this classic example. So the retail is a space where data science was there. Not only now, it was age old. My first customer, I still remember, called Eon, which was like a Reliance in Japan. They manufacture from Alpine to Elephant. So I still remember in the year 2000, in a physical store, the product that will be in which shelves, perishable and non-perishable, whether this will be for the kid product, natural tendency for the kid products, you put it in a lower racks and all. So those are very simple examples. So their whole store products were shelved based on the data. Even that time I'm talking about. Because whatever we see in data science, it is not something new, frankly speaking. Because we have got now a better infrastructure, the example I gave, like in the 10 days program can come down to 10 hours. So that's what has actually been changed. Earlier, our data science or AI/ML capabilities were based on the limited data and limited, I would say, computational power. But now, being these two are solved, the opportunities are enormous. Uber couldn't have done this sort of analysis 20 years back because their computational power was not available. The cloud was not there in the way they are now. So given that, so the technologies are the basics, they are improving, but more or less they were there for last 20, 25 years. With the technology, it is now giving us a kind of a better way and quicker way. And the problem statements are becoming more complex these days, which was not earlier. Similarly, in healthcare, in the COVID scenario, if you've seen, healthcare is a very big area. In US, not only even US, in everywhere, without data science, I mean, the moment a patient comes in, as per the Obamacare, his risk score is fetched. In any hospital, they call it provider. And when somebody is doing a claim from a insurance, health insurance perspective, the claim settlements and everywhere they are using data science now. There are, I mean, if you have got some operation done in some of the hospitals in US and you got a claim of $500, the company is giving you a $450. Now, this is not just somebody else's wish, like, you'll cut $50. No, not like that. So there's a big, analysis which is being done at the back end. And based on that, they are coming to this kind of decisions and all. Banking and finance is another very big area. You imagine in India, or rather many countries like in India, the unstructured, the people who doesn't have any civils kind of a score, which is more than 90%. Now, how do you give them loans? Even now, companies are using, when you are applying for a loan online or through a tab, and they'll put you in front of a kiosk when you go there. When you are typing, they are capturing the data from you, and they are capturing the psychometric behavior from you. For example, if there is a column, you are applying for a loan and there is a column for salary. You are writing something and deleting it twice, there is an alarm. So that is affecting your score. So it has gone keystroke level, what information you are putting in that level. So this is an area which was there earlier complex, like in the stock market, as you know, those programmers were the highly demanded, and everything is, AI/ML that time also, now also. But with the commercial part of in the retail banking, this has come a lot. The next I have already touched upon, like transportation and logistics, probably the biggest in implementation. And with the invent of, the electric vehicles and all, this analysis is, going to be very big, like anxiety charging. Like if you've got an electric vehicle, you're on the road, you always have an anxiety, the charge will go down. And what do I do? Now, there the only solution is data analytics and data science. There's no other way. People are predicting your battery life, are predicting your battery, how soon it will be. And that's based on the data, based on lots of parameters, and that's done in real time. E-commerce already mentioned, media and entertainment. This OTT platform, based on your viewing experience, Netflix is pushing your, the movies that you want to see. And I at times gets really surprised. I was thinking of some movies to watch, and I found Netflix is pushing me that. I mean, very so they have actually personalized, kind of preferences they have captured, and they have captured it so well that wherever I log in, they push me the right content. So this is very, very interesting. Education is the next big thing coming. With the COVID, the need for AI/ML in education has increased multifold, and now it has got lots of use cases. And with the platforms that, if you've already seen, it started with a very basic online class. Now people are making it much more interesting, much more virtualized. A lot of platforms they're giving a virtual reality and matching it, with online, so that at least you'll have a feeling like, physical classes are being taken or not. And the last but not the least is manufacturing. Actual implementation in manufacturing, if you see what we call Industry 4.0, is basically the core of Industry 4.0 is nothing but industrial IoT, IIoT, people call it, and the data science. So these two are basically taking the manufacturing is the next jump. In India, there are companies, you won't believe, there are 300 assembly lines working in Gurgaon. There's a company, 300 assembly lines, and every step is being captured through IoT. And if there is a single problem, immediately is being, kind of identified, and that particular piece is kept separated so that your QA effort is minimized. So you save a lot of costs. So there are a lot more. I think I'm running out of time. So with this, I stop here, and I welcome all of you, the students who are watching this, to this interesting world of data science, and wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you all.
So thank you so much, Mr. Chatterjee, but you're not going away so soon. We have lots of questions pouring in.
Yeah.
Before we start off the questions, can we take a very, very small break and we can have a small AV and then we'll start off with the questions. Please stay with us, Mr. Chatterjee.
Sure.
We are back, and Ms. Chatterjee, like I said, so careers with data sciences, like you've just explained, data sciences touch almost every part of industry, so-called industry, every spread of it, every nook and corner of the industry, data science has touched, which means that the scope of this is huge. But here's the first question. Where should a student start when he wants to study data science as a career?
Well, for the first, again, that's based on my experience, I would say. As I said, the three pillars of data science is mathematics or statistics. Second is the programming, and the third is the management. So to start, I would say the management part can come later, or the first start with the very basic statistics and mathematics. So that it is the basics of data science. Like a very small example, I can say you've got a lot of data, and how you find this data from this data, how you remove the noise. That data might have some junk. So you need to clean the data, which is the first step. Very easy, what we call in technology term, outlier removal. So this might be a very small technology term, but for a newbie, it's better basics of the statistics if the person knows, and any programming language after that. It doesn't have to be Java or Python or anything. Any standard programming language which is comfortable of is good enough, because the libraries are available, or he can do the programming in any language he or she wishes to. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chatterjee. That's actually very interesting. But our students are very straightforward. The next question is right the money question. What is the remuneration we can look at in the field of data science?
Well, I just give an example. Probably there was a course that was the best. I mean, one of the very interesting course initially started a few years back. I think in 2016. I think 16. It was started by IIM Calcutta, IIT Kharagpur, and ISI. So these three called PGDBA, Postgraduate Diploma in Business Analytics. So when this course has quite a hefty fee to entry, there were a lot of entry barriers, like there were some screening and all. And then the first batch, which was very in dilemma, what will be the market, but that was the best combination. They spent 6 months in Kharagpur, 6 months in ISI, and 6 months in IIM. And the minimum salary, as per my knowledge, was 24 lakhs per year. That was the minimum of that batch. Now the demand of that is hefty. No, but that course, the only thing is that was not for the freshers. That was at least for 1 year or 2 years experience. But even for 2 years of experience, if I say, and the data science per hour salary, I mean, the generally rate, I would say, from, again, my experience in Europe, is a minimum $45 per hour, minimum as a professional. And I'm talking about, this is minimum $45 per hour. I mean, I'm talking offshore rate, not on-site. And if you compare that of a more or less average developer, which is maybe $22, And so that's all more than double.
That's a lot of money. Boys and girls, if you're listening to this, and if money is one of the things you want to look for in your career, there you go. You've got a right hit right here. But I'm going to ask another question. The question's just come in. If I want to study data science, should I do so in India or should I go abroad?
I think it doesn't matter. That's like a personal choice, rather, I would say. In India, there are lots of courses. The one that I mentioned already, IIT and ISA, there are lots of government and private courses are there. So the choice is yours, the students. So both are same. There is one course, if somebody wants to do it for initial testing before they can take a decision, I would rather suggest maybe to test a bit before really jump it on into that. There are online courses. One of the best is from Stanford University. Those are video courses, audio video. So maybe they can have a feel. Those are some courses are not very costly. And in Coursera and Udemy and those kind of online there are lots of courses. But I would suggest the university courses to me a bit structured. Lots of universities. In Stanford, one is the best one. And XLRI has a nice one, Jamshedpur. And of course, now, I mean, there are lots of institutions, they have come up with this. But when whoever does this data science course, I mean, just keep in mind to identify whether the three angles are met. But I mean, statistics, I mean, programming, statistics, and the management. So then the circle completes. Like that's why I give the number one, the rank, this PGDBA course. They get to know the business angle. Kharagpur, they get to know about the data engineering, the engineering angle of it. I mean, and then the ISI is the purely statistics, angle of it. So these three, amalgamation is perfect there.
I'm actually very glad, Mr. Chatterjee, you brought this up, because I was doing a bit of a research and I realized that you can do an MTech in data science, but business analytics has a different MBA. So there was a question in my mind that should I go for an MBA in business analytics or should I go for an MTech in data science? And from a student's perspective, I mean, what should I actually go for? What should I look at?
See, one is that, I mean, again, the first MTech in data science means more technology and less business. The other one is more functional or business and less technology. So both are required in an industry. It's basically the person's interest. So what you will be given? You'll be given a problem statement, right? I mean, a problem statement will be given to you. Then what you need? The problem statement will have a business angle of it. Not all the solution will be feasible, right? So the business guy will really decide how, with using the technology, the best solution is possible. From that angle, both these two guys are required. And getting one person knowing all these three probably is a bit difficult. So based on my answer to your question would be based on their personal choice. The person might be more technologically aligned or technically interested. Then he should go for MTech with this thing. And the other one should take the other, the MBA with, business analyst or as a kind of, or data analyst as a kind of, as a minor. Yeah.
So another question, can I start studying data sciences after class 12th? Because the courses that are available are generally all masters.
Well, definitely. In fact, even in India, I guess some of they have started. I don't know. I'm not sure in India, but definitely possible, because after 12, there is nothing which is something being taught in graduation which cannot be learned in the data science in the graduation level. In US and in other countries, they have introduced data science in the bachelor level long back. So in India, I mean, I don't know whether there is an officially, it's available, but should be. People should start and can start from that level very much.
Okay, I'm taking the last question now, sir. What graduation should I do if I want to pursue data science?
That's a good question. And as initially we said, data science teached maximum, as I said, from the physics background. So frankly speaking, it really doesn't matter as long as you have the acumen for problem solving logic, a bit of mathematics, you have got interest. And why physicists are more, because the initial applications of data sciences were more in physics, because that is more of application oriented things that way. So that was the practical reason. So if a person does even BCom, for example, doesn't really matter, because in the financial vertical, he might do great. If the person has done a commerce graduation, and there are persons, I'm telling you, I know so many people in the industry, they have come from the commerce background, they are doing as great as everybody, because data scientist is not an engineering career, neither it's like it can be anything. So as long as the person has got acumen of this, and the skill will be kind of gathered. Like my background is engineering, but my master's was again in engineering, MTech. But the data science was, my neural network was a paper. Now the rest of my life, in my entrepreneurship journey, so most majority of the time I'm doing data science. So, so it's possible from any background.
That is so good to hear, Mr. Chatterjee, because honestly, a lot of students do feel that I have done the wrong graduation, or I have taken the wrong stream in class 12th to be able to pursue a career of my choice. Talking about careers, and this is a question personally from me, sir, because a little bird told me that you've also been involved with ECPT. It's a very slight bit. So what do you think about the EduGuy Career Predictive Test, sir?
Yeah, that's where I started with my career wish when I was childhood. But frankly speaking, this kind of tools are really helpful from two perspectives. One is in I mean today's kid, all the information they get in the internet, right? But what really they do not get, a true perspective within himself or herself. That's very important. And how that can be possible. Somebody's parent might be, is a doctor. He wants, his son or daughter to be a doctor. And these sort of things are there in India a lot, it. Now, this has to be broken somewhere. And how people will break this, that's very important. So somebody has to be there, a mentor of that person within the close, proximity of that person. And always that might not be possible. There might also, I've seen the cases where the parents are very highly educated, even one is IAS officers, but they force his kid to become an engineer. But the person's knack may be in somewhere. We have seen even movies on that. So given all these consideration, it is best when a kid does this judgment from his own perspective, and tool is just helping them. Tool is trying to create more insight from the person and trying to do a kind of based on the proven methodology, telling the person these are the probable possibilities for you to explore. Correct. Now, to me, opening up those possibilities are more important, so that at least he can start thinking on that. If somebody, even one of our own guys had, his son, when he gave this, thing, one of the career option was actuarial science, So, and this actuarial science, frankly speaking, probably is the most highest paid job on earth. I mean, even the guys who does this analytics or this, data science for the actuarial science, their rates are abnormal. I mean, 200 per hour, it used to be for maybe, 2-3 years back. I mean, it's increasing. $200 per hour I'm talking about is the minimum rate those actuarial scientists, they get. I mean, even offshore. I mean, forget about if somebody goes to another country or not. So with that kind of a high rate, and even the kid, maybe he's in 10th, 12th standard, doesn't know what actuarial science is. But that will kind of trigger, queries under him, I mean, within himself or herself, so that they can, go and Google and study a bit, and maybe tell his or father, like, to know what exactly is this. So that will another way. It's giving him more information to take, a right choice. So that's the two-way this kind of tool really helps. And the way the ECPT has been, I've seen the the aspects not only from a psychometric perspective, but all career. I mean, it's basically a 360-degree view of student's perspective. The way it has been taken, like 3 A's that you mentioned, that probably covers a majority of it and the most of it. So definitely, this will be of great help to the young, career builders. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chatterjee. It was so lovely talking to you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Sanjay Chatterjee, the man behind data sciences. And as he just gave a very small example, I'm sure you must have paid attention to it, the man who actually ran the entire data science model behind the metro rail. So let me come back. Let me actually say bye-bye to Mr. Chatterjee. Mr. Chatterjee, it was wonderful talking to you. We will take a very small break, a very short break, and we again have the AV, and then we'll proceed for the closing of this hour.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Are you stressed out, indecisive, and confused about your career? ECPT A1 20 Minutes, world's most technologically advanced career predictive test. IBM's AI and deep learning technology will match your skills and aptitude to over 1,400 careers. Get your career tested at ecptonline.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And while I'm just beginning to close today's session, let me just summarize what happened today. We spoke to Mr. Sanjay Chatterjee, the co-founder of Idle Analytics, and the gentleman is so knowledgeable. He gave us information about everything that is related to data analysis, that is related to data sciences, and how can you choose to be a data scientist, how can you study to be one, and how much will you actually get paid if you become one, which of course is the most important question. That is about today, boys and girls. Let us go and see what do we have in store for you the coming week, as we are going to start the career hour again shortly. Over on the slide, you can take a look at the career hour, what the next week looks like. Airlines and airport management on 9th, sports management on 10th, culinary arts on 11th, and 12th is fine arts. Ladies and gentlemen, you can reach out to us as soon as you want, whenever you want, on our website, that is ecptonline.com. You can call us also. The details are present right on your screen right now. It is wonderful talking to you. This career hour, this Saturday Night Fever has been fantastic. Looking forward to see you once again at the upcoming week. This is Sameer signing out from ECPT Studios. Goa this time. Looking forward to see you again. Namaskar.